And we look forward to them actually putting the pressure on council to negotiate at the table and get this done now, to hold their feet to the fire and not let them continue this process now that they've seen exactly where they stand.
Even if you aren't, where are we
at in terms of saving the session? Just so that we're clear on that, where are we at on that?
There is still an opportunity to save this semester, absolutely, but I mean, we need to get on this today, right? We need to leave this press conference, we need to leave this meeting with the Premier and Deputy Premier, and we need to be back at that table with council, working towards this deal today.
What is the timeline then of losing this?
But what's the cutoff? What's the cutoff so that we get an understanding of where you guys are?
Well, I think that to some degree, I mean, you know, this is one of the dangers of having such a chasm between administration and faculty, is that we should be working with the colleges to determine what that's going to look like when we get back in those classrooms and what's salvageable in the semester. Now, hopefully, when we reach this settlement, that will begin that process and that relationship. I don't think there's a hard cutoff that any of us can speak to. Some of it's program specific, some of it's looking at the apprenticeships, things like that. I know that we are in the red zone for sure.
I will be beseeching, imploring, begging, lobbying the Premier to make sure that those college presidents understand that the people that know how to save the semester are the people that are in the classrooms. And if they do that, JP and their folks can save the semester. You can reduce the damage that's been done. It's been hurtful to a lot of people, but if they just listen, to the people that do the work, then it can be salvaged.
In terms of the contract, the current breakdown between full-time and part-time stands about 37, correct?
We believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 3/4 of our faculty are operating on short-term low-paid contracts.
So what is the last offer you voted on? What does it dramatically change that ratio?
The last offer, the one that we just voted on, actually would not have addressed that ratio. They had language in there that would have allowed them to expand their hiring of part-time faculty with almost no restrictions. So it would have actually made that ratio much worse than it is right now.
Down to zero?
I think that their goal is to get it as close to zero as possible.
Full-time. They like part-time. They're called flexible. I call it, not. It's called a horrible way to have to live.
So then therefore do you think this kind of conflict comes down to the rise of precarious work versus full-time?
Well, I think what we, in the LCBO, we took on equal pay for equal work, we took on precarious work. This contract round has built on that battle, and it is a battle, it's a war. It's not, I guess it's a war rather than a battle. Has built on that. It's really brought to the forefront how horrible precarious work is for all segments of society, whether you're a clerk in the LCBO or working in a warehouse, or you're in a classroom, imparting your knowledge and creating leaders of the future, creating the workers of the future. So it's everywhere. It's in universities, it's in government, it's in factories. Precarious work is everywhere. So it's now on the agenda as a result of this. Now, going into this, the goal was to bargain a collective agreement. But when it got into an all-out war, well then, guess what? Everything's on the table, and we pushed all those issues, and that's what the fight was about in the main. Can you get to 100% full time? Nothing turns overnight. It's a big ship, right? But we're hoping that we have high hopes for the task force, and I've been involved in a couple in the government that actually work. And so I know that process can work because it brings out other people into the equation rather than just the bosses. So I think the ingredients for change are there, but it'll take some political will to take on the college council and to recognize the government. I believe I'm asking the government to recognize the role that they can play. They're funded by 47%, 43, 47, in there around there somewhere. They need to exert that. They need to exert their authority in that regard.
I think this challenges too the notion that the gig economy, or the so-called gig economy, is a done deal. What we are doing now is drawing a line in the sand around that and trying to set a higher bar for all workers, not just college workers. We have an immense amount of privilege within our system to be able to make this stand, and in order to make this pay it forward in a sense. And just for context, there are other colleges in Alberta, in BC, that have full-time to non-full-time ratios as high as 90% full-time to 10% non-full-time embedded in their collective agreements. So this isn't some pie in the sky idea that kills systems. It's actually about what kind of college system do you want to have your students enrolled in for the next 50 years, and then extending that to other facets of the economy. We are the economic engine of Ontario, and we should be treated with the respect and fairness that we deserve in those roles.
So is it? So in your opinion, has this forcing you guys to vote really just wasted a week? Was it a waste of time?
Almost 2 weeks you wasted, yeah.
Absolutely.
But that's the boss thinking, oh, we got them where we want them. What I tell you, this is my advice to bosses. Every time you get in a fight with workers, particularly unionized workers, the worse you treat them, the more the stronger their resolve becomes, because they band together and they say enough's enough, and you know kick sand in their face. Well, guess what? They're gonna they're not gonna take it. They're gonna stand up, and and so my advice to bad bosses has always been fair, firm, and friendly. Just treat your workers fairly, be friendly, and just do the right thing. But this is another example of a bully boss that thinks they know better than anybody else, and they don't think they know it. They know they're smarter than everybody else. I guess from our experience with them. So I'm not surprised it backfired on them in a very major way.
Jamie, the issue of academic freedom and why that's so crucial in this contract.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's inherently linked to precarious work as well, because academic freedom in the college system is about making those decisions in your classroom that you know are good for students and that can't be overturned by your chair, who may or may not, or your dean, who may or may not have any expertise in your area of study, right? So, in some ways, it's with your nursing faculty. Do you want a nurse who's actually designing the course, setting the evaluation, telling you if the student has met the learning outcomes? Or do you want a dean who may or may not even have had experiences as a nurse or in the health sciences? Do you want a paramedic? Similarly, who do you want? The paramedic professor who's making those decisions? Or do you want somebody who has never set foot in the sector? Those are the key issues. We have thousands of examples of grades being overturned, of the resources that you use being dictated and those not being appropriate for the field or being outdated, of being directed to use canned content that's supplied by publishers rather than that relies on the expertise of the faculty. So really, when you boil it down, academic freedom is about who should make decisions in a classroom, the professor or the administrator. We're not telling them that we need to make all the financial decisions at the college. What we're telling them is we need to make those academic decisions. It's honestly, logically, the only thing that makes sense, and it's a no-cost issue. So for them to be holding out on this last little peg is reprehensible in a system that is trying to grow to meet the modern needs of our students. Whoa!
Well, to the students, a lot of students are watching this live right now and won't be in class on Tuesday. Can we talk directly to those students?
I'm sorry, I don't know which one's your counter, quite frankly.
There you go.
To the students that are still out, one, thank you for your support. Two, you have shown amazing ability to advocate for yourselves, and your faculty stand with you on all of those struggles. And call your college president and tell them to tell council to get back to the table now, and we will settle this thing and have you back in classes next week.
Back to the classroom. Back to the
Table, back to the classroom, back to the table, back to the classroom, back to the table, back to the classroom, back to the table, back to the classroom.
Any more questions? All right. Oh, sorry, George. Go ahead.
I guess you're obviously the strike is over yet. You're still working on a deal. Where do your thoughts go to actually kind of building a good, strong relationship with students who might be very upset about what's happening? I know it's not just on the union; it's on the colleges as well. Like, how do you see your role as kind of rebuilding a relationship which might be patterns process like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be tricky for those students who haven't had the ability to come out and talk to their faculty about why we're walking these lines, or haven't been able to follow what's going on for whatever set of reasons. But our faculty, once they get back in those classrooms, are as committed as they were when we left to making sure that students understand why we were out there and to making sure that they can meet those learning outcomes and finish those semesters to the best of everyone's ability. Faculty, we know, will work very hard to ensure that their students are supported. We are out here to make sure that these jobs are good jobs when students graduate as well. And rebuilding those relationships is going to take time. But for students, they can come out and talk to us for as long as we're on these lines. Hopefully it won't be much longer. And if not, ask those questions when you're in your classroom, because there is not a faculty member in this system who won't be able to answer them.
And if I could ask the student associations to consider the following. Get a hold of the college presidents and say, listen carefully. We want the faculty to help us salvage the year. We don't want your administrators to impose hokey rules or limits or anything. We want you to let the people that are teaching us figure out with us how to save our semester and have us have the best learning outcome possible. So if the student councils and the associations would think about that kind of a message to the presidents of the college, I think that'd be amazing.
In regards to having grades overturned, this subsequently could have students graduating who aren't prepared because they should have failed. What does that do to the reputation of the colleges?
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous game that the colleges play when they have administrators not follow appeals processes and overturn the grades. And this is exactly the kind of thing we're trying to fight. And when we refer to quality education, we are referring to exactly that. We want to make sure that every student who walks out of an Ontario college does so with the knowledge that they need and the experience that they need to succeed in their field. It doesn't do anyone any good if students are passing without that knowledge, and it certainly doesn't help those students either.
All right, well, thank you, folks. Fingers crossed, right, everybody? This done.